The Straw Hat crew have won all their fights against the Baroque Works officer agents, but they have yet to overcome its mastermind, who is face to face with Vivi at the palace. Crocodile has revealed the existence of the Pluton and the Ponegliff, a record of history that will reveal the destructive weapon's location. Meanwhile, Luffy is nowhere to be seen. It's full speed ahead as we reach the climax of the Grandeur of Alabasta. Let's jump straight into the Zoro fight intermission that we missed, showing the Royal Army of Alabasta's last desperate attempts to stop Crocodile. The Kicking Claw Force have managed to breach the palace gates that Miss All Sunday had kept sealed, and by extension revealing that her main body, for lack of a better term, receives the same damage that her flowering limbs incur. Unfortunately, this is just Oda reinforcing a lesson that was taught to us via the brief fight between Miss All Sunday and Pell. Alabasta cannot stop Crocodile. Previously, it was their greatest warrior, now it's an elite force using a lethal potion to increase their strength. They are more than willing to use their lives to defeat Crocodile to protect their king and country, but in line with his duplicitous and dishonorable nature, Crocodile simply moves out of their reach. If they're going to die anyway, why waste his energy? Even though he could easily defeat them, he won't even give them the honor of a battle. Crocodile's mockery makes Chaka move, and much like how Pell had a Falcon Zoan to match his epitaph, Chaka has a Jackal Zoan. And we don't even get to see their fight, as when we next return, Chaka is already defeated, and there is only 25 minutes until Crocodile's planned explosion. Koza, who we had seen break off from the main rebel force previously, finally makes his appearance, and in a tragic realization he learns the truth. Crocodile, at this point, doesn't care though. He's reveling in the despair he's inflicted that he's gotten a boy who previously loved the kingdom to turn into a tool for its downfall. Even now, Vivi and King Cobra are yet to give up. It's not about what happens to them, the royal family. The people are the kingdom. Vivi's focus on this goal allows her to keep a cool head, and she and Koza move to save the people. This moment shows why Crocodile was right to fear Vivi getting in contact with Koza, and it shows that Vivi was right. If only she was able to talk to Koza to reveal to him the truth, he would have believed her and the war could have been stopped. Crocodile does try to stop them, but Chaka still has a spark of life left and uses it to be true to his name and be a guardian of Alabasta. Vivi and Koza get the royal army to surrender, but as the rebels close in on the palace to see the white flags, and Koza is about to announce the end of the fighting, as we've seen time and time again, the house always wins. A Baroque Works agent within the royal army shoots Koza, then Crocodile whips up a storm between the forces as infiltrators on both sides start shooting, inciting more violence and bloodshed. Once more, Crocodile has silenced Vivi, as her desperate cries cannot be heard over the sounds of battle. Even Miss All Sunday comments, a grave expression on her face, "They can't hear you now." Even as Crocodile holds her by the neck, mocks her for her idealism, Vivi still believes, but the cries of the battle even drown out her attempts to declare in the face of evil that she will save this country. And she doesn't speak another word. Crocodile tears into Vivi's choices, makes light of her last 2 years of work trying to stop him, and as he tells her that Alabasta is doomed, he drops her to her death. She cannot say anything, she can only cry and accept her fate. But emerging from the center of the sun, its bright light shining behind him, Luffy appears. Just like when Vivi had given up hope once before, he is here to give her hope once more, and Vivi regains her voice as she calls for him. So it's fitting that the next chapter is called Hope. Luffy and Pell catch Vivi before she falls, and she weeps into Luffy's shoulder, lamenting how no one can hear her. And there are pages in One Piece that get me a bit emotional. Nami's help is one of them. But before this series, this page wasn't one of them. But now? Vivi's strength is her voice, her kind heart, and all throughout Alabasta, Crocodile has been taking that away from her, taking away the only thing Vivi can do. Then, in this moment when Vivi has given up on the one thing she can do, when she laments how useless her ability is, Luffy is here to tell her that it's not useless at all. He can hear her voice. He can hear her desperate cries, her fears, her dreams. He can hear it over the cries of the battle below. Despite Crocodile's attempts to take her voice away from her again and again and again, he'll never be able to stop Luffy from being able to hear Vivi. Luffy's not saying it with his usual big, eyes-closed smile either. He's looking directly at her. She is his focus. She is the reason he's here. All he has done this arc is for her. In the same way that Nami's help is the moment that Nami finally decides to hand over a burden to Luffy after an arc when she's been determined to carry it alone, this "I can hear your voice" is Luffy telling Vivi that her 2 years of trying to save her kingdom weren't for naught, that her voice will save her kingdom after an arc of her being silenced. And that just gets to me. As they land and Luffy prepares to go and fight Crocodile, the rest of the crew reach the palace as promised. They're a little worse for wear, but they're all here for Vivi too. Luffy admits that he lost, but he won't lose again. The crew cheer him on, and Vivi, once more, recalls her lesson. She is not fighting alone. Luffy and the Straw Hat crew are all here supporting her, and Luffy is here to do the one thing he can. Luffy launches himself at Crocodile, who arrogantly expects this confrontation to be the same as last time, which makes it all the more satisfying when we get a beautiful double-page spread of Luffy nailing Crocodile right in the face. Just like how Luffy grew between his confrontations with Smoker, he has grown since his last fight with Crocodile. Most importantly, it was all because of Toto. His trust in the king, his hope that the rain will come, and his persistence in the face of Crocodile's repeated attempts to break his will, all coalescing into the Yuba water that he gave to Luffy that revealed to Luffy Crocodile's weakness. So drenched in the hope of Alabasta, Luffy takes up a fighting stance, ready to take down a warlord of the sea. We cut to Vivi and the crew as she gets everyone up to speed, and Oda makes a point to stress Crocodile's callousness towards his tools and Baroque works. His plan to bomb the square would obviously kill the Baroque works members present, but they wouldn't know Crocodile's plan. After all, Crocodile only ever reveals the bare minimum information to his organization. Those same members are after Vivi's head, but that's okay, as the crew along with Pell are all there to fight them off and help her find the bomb. I also like the detail that despite their increasing animosity this saga, we see a moment of perfect agreement between Sanji and Zoro. Everyone is united in their desire to help Vivi. Back to Luffy and Croc. We get some pre-fight banter. Despite his weakness being revealed, Crocodile is still confident that he's in a different league to Luffy. He's a warlord after all. But just like Wapol, Luffy doesn't care what someone is. If Crocodile is one of the 7 warlords, Luffy is the 8th, and Luffy goes back on the attack. Once again, we see his growth between battles. While Luffy rolled around in pain after getting moisture sucked out of his arm last time, this time he doesn't even break his stride and quickly rehydrates it. Then he evolves his attacks. If straightforward, easily grabbable and dodgeable attacks won't hit, then make his attacks ungrabbable and fake Crocodile out so the attack can't be dodged. Crocodile thinks he has an easy win condition though, get rid of the water barrel, but Luffy realizes the same thing, drinks its entire contents, and becomes the incredible Water Luffy. Crocodile may think Luffy isn't taking this fight seriously, and Robin laughs just like she did when Luffy called Crocodile a fool, but it's more the case that Luffy is willing to try anything that comes to mind in order to defeat Crocodile. It doesn't matter if he looks silly, especially when his plan works and Luffy manages to soak and then land a bazooka on Crocodile. Miss All Sunday then starts to move, dislodging King Cobra from the wall and tells him to take her to the Ponegliff, and we see her demeanor change. Rather, she's been acting a little off for much of Luffy's fight with Crocodile. There's a shadow that has been clouding her face, aside from that one panel of her laughing. Crocodile, who manages to get up after the blow, does tell her to go, once again using her real name, but I have a feeling that she was planning to go anyway. The reason she's had a complicated expression for much of the fight is because, while she doesn't actually seem to like Crocodile and doesn't appear to want him to succeed, it seems quite clear that she is very interested in the Ponegliff. If she's been allied with Crocodile in order to get to the Ponegliff, I read it as just the slightest hint that she thinks that Luffy may actually succeed in this fight. She starts making moves to leave before Crocodile tells her to, because if Crocodile does lose, King Cobra almost certainly will not reveal the Poneglyph's location, So while the outcome is still ambiguous, she needs to get Cobra to take her there. She's never been this desperate, and we've looked into Miss All Sunday's expression before, seeing how the first time she looked serious was when asking Luffy about his D initial, and now she's beyond serious. Her furious look as Cobra asks why she would want to see the Ponegliff, the almost crazed expression she shows Tashigi and the Marines when they try to stop her from passing, but mixed with something else as we see an uncharacteristic sweat drop. Perhaps, though, her desperation was unwarranted, as we cut back to Luffy and Crocodile to see Crocodile once again defeating Luffy, shriveling him up, even all the water he stored within himself. Except not. Crocodile makes his exit, but Luffy has made a successful gamble, shooting several large globs of water into the air, which upon landing successfully rehydrate Luffy from the brink of death. Luffy is lucky, and I would argue canonically so, but still, this was certainly very fortunate. If Crocodile didn't drop him directly downwards, then that's the end of One Piece, but hey, if we're sticking with the theme that the water is a representation of the hope of Alabasta, I'm willing to let a little bit of narrative contrivance slide. It is implied that this was 100% Luffy's plan. He realizes that once Crocodile's hand reaches him, there's not much he'll be able to do, so Luffy, spur of the moment, makes a choice to fire off some water into the air on the off chance it will land back on him. I can't say that that's out of character. I also realized that since he dropped Vivi directly downwards, there is technically precedent for Crocodile to finish off his enemies in this way. Alright, enough justifications, let's continue. As we catch back up with King Cobra and Miss All Sunday, we get more revelations about the Ponegliff and Alabasta's royal family. First, and most interestingly, the fact that Robin is able to read the Ponegliff, and the fact that that is, in and of itself, apparently unique. Not even King Cobra can read it, even though Alabastan kings are entrusted to protect it, which is also a curious line. Generations of Alabastan kings are entrusted with protecting the Ponegliff, but more so, it is their only duty. Protecting a record of history, even if it reveals the location of an island-destroying weapon, but Alabasta is a member of the world government, but even still they don't delegate this responsibility to the world government or get them involved at all. Combine this fact with the reveal of Nico Robin's bounty, 79 million, a little shy of Crocodile's before it was frozen, but the difference being that Robin's was set when she was only 8 years old, and Oda begins to paint a very interesting picture. A record of history, hidden and protected for generations, hidden even from the world government, and a woman who can read it who has had a large bounty since childhood. We'll definitely get back to this later. Regardless, as Robin opens the door to the Ponegliff, she has a relieved look on her face. We catch up quickly with Vivi, Pell, and the rest of the Straw Hats as they desperately search for the bomb. They've got about 5 minutes until it explodes, and there's some comedic banter as they all try to think of where it is hidden. Then to Luffy, who comes across the fallen Tashigi. Despite the very deadly-looking hold Miss All Sunday appeared to put her in, Robin doesn't seem to want to hurt innocent people, even if she is growing desperate. Tashigi has this moment, thinking about how powerless she is, and we see a scene of Crocodile also finding her and mocking her for her powerlessness. And she thinks for a moment. Smoker sent her here to enforce her justice, but what is that? She went with the intention to capture the Straw Hats, but as she looks at Luffy, she drops her sword and points him in Crocodile's direction. Whatever the justice she wants to enforce is, she's too powerless to do so. As Luffy passes out from his old wound, we get back to Robin and actually see the Ponegliff, a giant cube with strange writing on it. In spite of her previous relief, Robin looks a bit stoic upon actually getting to examine the Ponegliff up close, especially as King Cobra asks if she's found what she's wanted. She asks if there are any more Poneglyphs in Alabasta, but alas, there is nothing, and Robin's face is filled with a cold disappointment. As Crocodile makes his way inside, we don't get to fully see Robin's expression. Is she disappointed that Luffy didn't defeat him? He asks her to read the Poneglyph and she obliges, listing some history of Alabasta, but Crocodile doesn't care about any of that and asks where is the weapon located. And Robin, not with her usual empty smile, but just a completely empty look, tells him that it isn't there. So Crocodile decides to kill her. Robin was the one who apparently went to Crocodile, saying that if he brought her to the Poneglyph, she would reveal Pluton. But as we've known for a while, it doesn't matter how competent, how strong, how valuable someone is, If they fail to fulfill their purpose, Crocodile will throw them away without hesitation. As I've said before, he only views people as tools, and this tool has failed to fulfill its purpose. As he stabs her through the chest, he says he forgives her, but as we learned with Mr. 3, it's not about forgiveness. There's nothing to forgive because he doesn't trust, he doesn't care. You don't forgive a hammer if it doesn't fulfill its purpose, it gets thrown away. And as Robin falls to the ground, the last of Baroque Works' officers fall. Crocodile is alone. He's not even thinking about that though. Something in King Cobra's reaction to Robin reading the Ponegliff has made him think that the Pluton is somewhere in Alabasta, so he will find it. Cobra won't let him though, as he triggers something in the underground chamber to cause it to collapse. He is more than willing to use his life to stop Crocodile and save his kingdom. As Crocodile comments, and as we've said, Cobra is the paragon of kingliness. Crocodile isn't fussed though, as with his powers, he'll be able to escape. Back to the state of the battle. There's barely a minute and a half left as Vivi trips and injures her leg, but this brief moment allows her to think, and she has an epiphany. So she gets Usopp to call the crew together with a signal. The crew all see it, and... Hang on a sec. Zoro, what are you doing? He's outside of the city, like far outside. Oda has really taken the brakes off his lack of direction. Unfortunately, this signal also brings Baroque Works to their location, so Vivi and Usopp have to flee. Luffy wakes up and resumes his pursuit, and using his instinct, he finds the entrance to the underground chamber. It looks crocodile-ish. And indeed, there he is, much to Crocodile's chagrin. He can't understand Luffy's persistence. He loves to take away hope, but Luffy will never give up. And why? Because Crocodile stole Vivi's kingdom, a home where she should be at peace, where the people she loves are. Crocodile's stolen all of that. He has stolen Vivi's joy and Vivi's laughter. So Luffy rushes forward, but Crocodile is unfazed. He is no longer the incredible water Luffy, so what can he do? First, Luffy kicks him, and then he punches him hard in the face. If the water, the hope of Alabasta, first allowed Luffy to hit Crocodile, then that hope is also running through Luffy's veins, his blood allowing him to bypass Crocodile's defenses. Finally, after 2 rounds, Crocodile recognizes Luffy as a worthy foe. He's not just some greenhorn pirate anymore, but that means that Crocodile will go all out, and he removes the cover of his hook to reveal the poisoned hook underneath. He is no longer Mr. Zero, head of Baroque Works, or a warlord of the sea. Crocodile is finally acting as a pirate, ready to fight to the death. Up on the surface, we see that Tashigi has made her decision as she and her marines assist the Straw Hats as they race towards the clock tower, from where Vivi believes the bomb will be fired. But as Pell flies close, he gets shot down by a strange frog gun. Back below ground, and Luffy and Crocodile are busy fighting. Crocodile's poison is so strong it can melt through rock, and Luffy gets slashed by it. Luffy isn't afraid of Crocodile's poison. He's not fighting to preserve his own life, but for Vivi's sake. Cobra watches on with awe as Crocodile starts to claim victory, thinking his poison will soon take effect. Luffy, however, is unperturbed. Once more to the surface, where Sanji and Zoro have both made it to the clock tower. Sanji because he was trying to be helpful in climbing it, and Zoro because he's an idiot. Vivi knows there isn't a way up the clock tower from where the pair are though, but Nami hatches a plan. But as she does, the face of the clock tower begins to open, revealing Mr. 7 and Miss Father's Day. The two are, of course, oblivious to Crocodile's plan. They think they are launching a giant cannonball, not a bomb. Crocodile is ready to use their lives without a moment's consideration. Below ground, we see Luffy weakening, his trembling and coughing, but even though Crocodile keeps saying he's going to die from the poison, questioning why he keeps on fighting, Luffy grits his teeth and keeps on going. It's at this point that the cuts between the two groups become far too frequent. It works when reading, but not while narrating, so I'm going to choose when I switch now. At the base of the clock tower, Nami is putting her plan into fruition, stacking Usopp, Chopper, and Vivi. Then she launches a Cyclone Tempo directly into Usopp's unmentionables, launching him into the sky. As Nami directs the crew, they all work together as Chopper jumps off of Usopp onto Sanji's leg, who then launches them further. As they reach Zoro, the Baroque Works pair take notice and take aim, and so they avoid danger. Zoro launches Vivi and Chopper straight up, but he gets shot as a result, and it's sweet that we see Sanji's concern. Mr. 7 and Miss Father's Day move to take aim once more, but they only see Chopper, and he narrowly manages to avoid getting shot himself. Now all that's left is Vivi. She flies in with her weapon ready, and once she's in range, she goes for a peacock string slasher. But just like this entire series, Vivi isn't allowed to deliver a final blow. That is, when she's fighting solo. But Vivi isn't fighting by herself. That's been the whole point of this saga. That's been her revelation, her salvation. Vivi is not alone. She's only been able to make it to this point in the broad sense, and right now in the very literal sense, thanks to the efforts of the whole crew. They've put their bodies on the line, they've taken blows for her, they've carried her to this point. Vivi isn't fighting with her own strength because she doesn't need to anymore, and as a result, she succeeds in defeating Mr. Seven and Miss Father's Day, knocking them out of the clock tower, and then manages to sever the fuse. Now we can cut back to Luffy. Crocodile is so bewildered by Luffy's behavior that he can't help but shout at Luffy, questioning why he can't just abandon the kingdom, abandon Vivi. Surely his own life is more important. But as Luffy said so before, Crocodile is a fool. He's thrown away so many people, he could never understand what it's like to care about someone. Vivi is Luffy's friend, and so if she is fighting to save her kingdom, then Luffy and the crew will fight alongside her, even if it costs them their lives. As Luffy told Vivi, people die, but if it's to save a friend, so be it. Though the poison is taking effect and Luffy falls to the ground, and Crocodile mocks him some more. No matter how driven Luffy is by how much he cares about Vivi, as long as he remains, their efforts will be for naught. As he waits for his bomb to explode, there's a pause, but he's not worried. The house always wins after all. The bomb isn't relying on the fuse, and while its damage may be lessened by being higher up instead of launching into the center of the square, the result will still be catastrophic. This is Crocodile's final repudiation of Vivi's ideals, his final mockery of her hope, even when he's not there to witness it, even if this bomb was planted long before he knew she'd be there to try and stop it. This is Crocodile saying to Vivi once more that her efforts are useless, their blood and sweat is all for naught, except it isn't. The precious seconds that Vivi gained, they weren't for nothing. Crocodile doesn't have anybody he can trust, sure, but that means he, in turn, isn't trusted. His organization members serve him for their own interests, for their own rewards, or out of fear. They'll fight for him as a job, but no one is willing to truly sacrifice for him. They'll abandon him as easily as he abandons them. No one knows Crocodile, no one loves Crocodile. Pell knows Vivi. He knew the clock tower because he's watched over Vivi since she's been a child. He's feared for her safety. He's disciplined her so she would grow. He's trained and become Alabasta's greatest warrior, all so he can defend her and the kingdom. He's been training so he can put his life on the line for her. He loves her. So the guardian deity of Alabasta picks up the bomb, flies it high into the sky away from the city, and it lights up the sky with an explosion. Crocodile really is a fool. He can't comprehend Luffy putting his life on the line to stop him, and he can never foresee someone using their life to foil his plan. Crocodile only moves for himself, plans for himself, never lets anyone else in, and treats everyone else as tools to be used and thrown away. For all the possibilities he foresaw, for as many contingencies as Crocodile had put in place, he couldn't comprehend this outcome because he couldn't comprehend someone risking their life for another. But unfortunately, though Crocodile's destructive plans have been thwarted, cogs he's put in place continue to spin. In spite of the giant explosion temporarily stopping the fighting, as soon as they get back on their feet, the war between the Royal Guard and the rebels continues. They're so drunk on battle that they cannot stop. Vivi cries out again and again and again, stop fighting, but she cannot be heard over the sound of battle. Nami is brought to tears and she moves the rest of the crew. If the people will not stop, then they will have to stop them. As Luffy said before, nothing will stop until Crocodile is defeated. Luffy gets back up and declares that he's gonna be king of the pirates, and Crocodile charges forward mocking Luffy's declaration, but Luffy snaps his poison claw in response. There's only one thing that Luffy can do, the thing he will do that Vivi cannot. He will defeat Crocodile. Despite the poison flowing through him, Luffy lands blow after blow on Crocodile. Crocodile whips up a devastating storm. It doesn't matter that he's underground. Luffy doesn't care. He won't be defeated by the sand, and he launches himself into the sky and counters with a storm of his own. Bursting through the ground like a geyser, Luffy launches Crocodile high into the sky above the battle where Vivi can see him. Just as promised, Luffy has kicked his butt, driving Crocodile up through layers of bedrock. No one else has noticed though. The fighting is still raging and Vivi continues her desperate cry, though this time, rain begins to fall. The king of the desert, the cause and embodiment of the drought, has been defeated. As the opposing sides feel the rain on their skin, the battle goes silent, and finally, the people of Alabasta can hear Vivi's voice. She will no longer be silenced by Crocodile, and she declares that the nightmare is finally over. Below ground, King Cobra thanks Luffy, who smiles and says it was nothing, because truly it was. Of course, he would go this far for a friend. And the underground chamber collapses. Despite the fighting being on hold, the rebels are still burning with resentment. They're still under the influence of Crocodile's deception, but regardless of the rebels' anger, Chaka, in terrible shape, shows up and tells the soldiers to drop their weapons, and Igaram appears as well, with Kappa, the boy from Nanohana, in his arms. Kappa tells the rebels about the imposter king, and Koza manages to sit up and tell the rebels that they've been manipulated. Igaram once more tells everyone to throw down their weapons so he can explain what happened, and they finally comply. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats are making their way to the palace when they run into Cobra, who is carrying Luffy. They exchange some words and Vivi shows up to reveal Cobra as the king. Cobra tells the crew that he was saved by Luffy, and Luffy, even after his fight with Crocodile, managed to carry 2 people out of the rubble. I'm sure that won't become very relevant soon. Sanji dissuades Vivi from telling the people about their involvement and tells her to go off with the king to the square, and as she and the king leave them, the entire crew collapse from exhaustion. Tashigi and the Marines surround the unconscious Crocodile and charge him with his crimes and revoke his authority as a warlord of the sea. Then we get to see the aftermath in a variety of panels, the Marines taking care of the rest of Baroque Works, Karoo looking up at the sky, as well as the rest of the Supersonic Duck Squadron. We see the defeated officer agents, all unconscious aside from Bon Clay, who wanders off somewhere. We also see Eyelashes safe and sound. Then, in our final scene, we cut to the people of Alabasta, Koza lamenting their deception at the hands of Crocodile and wondering how they could ever make things right. And so the king steps forward to address everyone. Indeed, this has been a great tragedy. Nothing good has come of this conflict, only loss. But regardless, they must move forward. The past cannot be undone. The only thing the people of Alabasta can do is live. Because the people are the kingdom. So as long as they continue to live on, so will Alabasta. And so, Alabasta's civil war comes to an end, as does this part. Crocodile and Baroque Works are defeated, rain has once more fallen upon the land, the nightmare is over. Next part is the end. The end of the Alabasta Saga, the end of this series, the wind down after an exciting battle, and we'll also go over this saga as a whole, the important themes that have made themselves known, important things to note, just whatever I can think of. It looks like we're nearly back at the shore too. I hope Mary is doing okay. It's been a long journey and I thank you for joining me. After all, it's not I attempt new things, it's we attempt new things. Thank you for watching and I hope you have a fruitful day.